Board. Okay. So totally not related to the presentation, but can you tell me a little bit about the cohort that you're in? I think that's one of the things that I, as an adjunct with St. Thomas, kind of never know where you guys are coming in at. And if, like, let's say, do the four of you already know each other? Have you had classes together? And how far you're in your program?
Well, for me, the cohorts, they change a little bit depending on what courses you're taking.
Okay. You don't stick together the whole time?
No, I mean, I see many of the same students.
Okay.
In many of the courses, but they're not all the same.
Okay.
So it just kind of depends on where people are at. Where I am at is this is my, I have 3 classes after this one.
Oh, good for you.
And then I'll be done. And then I have just submitted a first draft of my chapter 1 for my dissertation.
Good for you. So then
I'm waiting for feedback from my chair.
Okay. So then after the 3 classes, do they give you so long to write?
Well, we were actually enrolled in a course and it's got different levels in it. So they changed it because they were 5 weeks at a time, and I'm not exactly sure where it's at now.
Okay.
But my dissertation, the chair of my dissertation, she is Dr. Maxwell.
Okay.
You know, she's doing a nice job of, just kind of moving it along. So
okay.
I'm hoping, for me personally, that I'll be done this calendar year.
Oh, wow. Good for you. Like totally done.
Huh?
Totally done?
Defend my dissertation. I'm hoping.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Good for you.
We'll see.
How long have you been in the program?
Just a little over a year. See, I received some transfers because I've got several graduate degrees. So
got it.
I got some transfer credit. So that helped me out a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for you. Have you enjoyed it?
I've enjoyed it immensely. Yeah.
Good.
And it really ties into, I've got pretty extensive background in industry, both for-profit, not-for-profit. So
yeah.
So a lot of this, it reinforces. But I enjoy writing.
Yeah, you're good at it.
And I appreciate that. But I actually enjoy it. In all my graduate work, I preferred writing over taking exams.
Got it.
For me personally, I learn more when I do that. You're forced to do, whatever. So that's how it works for me.
Got it.
I've enjoyed the program. I like the pace. I especially like the pace, and every instructor that I've had has just been, in my opinion, top notch.
Oh, good.
Because they're very responsive, very kind, professional.
Good.
Just good stuff. I like it. Yeah.
And how does the workload in this course compare to others? Is it lighter or heavier, or?
In this course here so far?
Yeah.
The one we're in right now? It's about the same. I mean, we're just in week 2, so I'm looking forward to this video and then writing a recap of it.
Yeah.
So, I think, sometimes the length of the papers that have to be written, I just think it's just, I'm not sure that they need to be as long as they need to be, like a 10 and a 15 page and some other stuff too in a 5-week period.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Seems like it's a lot. And I've had instructors say that nothing negative towards the university or anything, but if they could adjust things, they wouldn't require them to be as long. So.
Yeah. What I've been telling, so this is only my 3rd class with St. Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time teaching this particular class, but this is more in my research background, so I feel really comfortable in it. But the other class I've been teaching is, I'm forgetting the exact name. Anyways, oh my gosh, I'm really, really out of it. What was I saying?
The other course that you've taught.
Oh, yeah. So I think between that class and then this class, that other class had a lot of writing in it, which is good. But I was trying to really encourage my students to think about that the writing of these papers, you should start really focusing them as much as you can on your dissertation topic so that you can start using the work that you're doing and kind of throwing that into your larger dissertation paper. So I know it's harder than said and done, but sometimes it's doable. So,
Right.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, let me jump into this. It's really just to, let me move the screen over here. Oh, I was going to say too, this is a really small class with just 4 students.
Yes.
But I want to say that, and this is for all 4 of you, at this level of writing, the idea of writing kind of personalized statements are not where you all should be. Like everything that's being stated in these papers should really be backed up by the research. So I just want to highlight that again. That's nothing at you directly, but I felt like the entire class, there was just quite a few paragraphs where it was almost like opinions. And, at this level, opinions aren't really brought in too much to a paper unless it's, brought in after kind of all the literature has been shared.
Now that's different from the discussions, though, because the discussions specifically ask for opinions. Is that correct?
Yeah, discussion's very informal. I mean, it's still APA formatted, but the papers are, to me, a bit more formal. So,
but in the papers, it is okay, is it not, to incorporate experiences, not so much opinions, but experiences.
Yeah.
And what I learned in the last course just kind of reinforced things, because we got this percentage of how much of the paper is not necessarily a direct quote, but how much of it's original.
Yeah.
And that's where the instructor said, paraphrase, and then obviously you want to give credit, which I think we do, and I know I'm very careful to do that.
Yep.
But then the other thing was to talk about your experiences, and that really fills it in, and it keeps, I forget what that score is called, where
like originality score.
Yeah, where you've got a program where it talks about how much of it, what percentage of it is.
Oh yeah, a safe assign.
No, there's another title to it. I don't remember what it is. But basically, if 50% of my paper was direct quotes and they were properly credited, then that would be, it would give me a score of 50%, which would be too high.
Yep. Yeah.
And so that's where, if you can write about your experiences, not opinions, but so I guess I'm making a statement, but I'm asking, is that what you're looking for as well?
Yeah. And I don't know if it was in your paper or someone else's, but I put, to show the reader that this is an experience, speaking from experience, one could say, and in my program, we were taught to write, instead of saying I or me as a researcher practitioner, this topic has been applied in the workplace because da-da-da. So kind of more from that angle, I think is stronger in writing.
What I did was I put in there, this writer, like third person.
Yes.
Versus first. I never write I, but it's always this writer. I think you'd made a comment about if you're referring to you, then you put in like this researcher.
Yeah, you could either put researcher practitioner.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess maybe that's kind of more what I was taught. So I don't know if it's more my committee was on that kind of. They just did not like anything else. So
okay.
Yeah. You'll find too in a doctoral program that I think there's rules to write by, and that would be, as you've done so well, is really following the APA. But then there's stylistic things that everyone's going to give you different opinions.
Yeah, I find that.
It comes down to that your chair, you want to follow his or her guidance, and you'll be okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So just a reminder here, I shared this all last time. I wanted to clarify, this is what I've always done. So maybe I need to change it, but when a assignment is 3 pages, I've always assumed students thought it was 3 full pages.
Mm-hmm.
But I took some points off from students, and they came after me saying that 3 pages doesn't mean full pages. So I said, okay, in this case, it won't, but in the future it will. So that's just more of an FYI. Other Zoom sessions, today is the 5th, so I've pressed that one out, and we'll do one next Monday. The following Monday, I'm going to be in DC, so I'm not totally sure if I'll be on the ground at the right time. So if not, I'll record it. And then the last one will be February 26th. And then just as mentioned, any questions, concerns, I'm absolutely available by email. So ahenry2@stu.edu.
Okay.
So Module 2 is looking, I don't know how much you've jumped into it, but looking at biases and assumptions. And this is directly from our Canvas shell, but there have been many social factors that have changed throughout the years, especially when we examine academia. A few years ago, undergraduate programs were occupied by males. However, today, the majority are led by females, and that's overall in higher education today. And the introduction and use of globalization in the workplace also calls for international course curriculum as well. So learning outcomes for Module 2 are to examine and evaluate the cross-cultural relationships and the current diversity policies within organizations, and then also to analyze and evaluate the principal issues involved in developing an effective diversity policy. So those learning outcomes, with regards to the second one, I don't think we really jump into that. But I would say that if you were being asked to create a diversity policy, I would definitely say one would be equipped to do so after learning all the content of this class. And then what's due for Module 2, there are some really good, I don't know if you've jumped into those yet. I know it's only Monday, but the lecture notes are really good. They're pretty extensive for this week. And then there's some readings for Module 2, as well as the video. So then we have the affirmative action video, and then we have what we already discussed, the police forces video, or excuse me, discussion board post. The affirmative action video analysis is due on Saturday. I think that's the 10th. And then, as always, the discussion board is Wednesday to post, and then Sunday to reply. And my goal always is to jump in your Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is about 9 o'clock. So either I'll jump in Wednesday night or Thursday and try to reply to the class. So we reviewed this already, the question for discussion board number 2. Diverse police forces are not a universal remedy to avoid fatal police shootings. Discuss your opinion with regards to demographics and education. Do you now feel like you kind of know how to move in the right direction?
I think so.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
Okay. And then the paper, again, this is also in Canvas, but it's to review and analyze the video. So I do like papers in which students can analyze and reflect upon, and a critique that demonstrates your own understandings of affirmative action. So always APA, it should be anywhere from 2 to 4 pages. So no shorter than 2, and it doesn't need to be any longer than 4, double spaced. And it's a summary of the analysis of the video. It should include a synopsis, a reflection, and a discussion of how the content presented could be applied in your own field. So I'm thinking kind of 3 separate parts of the paper. And to be sure to include the following sections: a summary of the main points, which would probably be in your synopsis, 3 key points in the video that you would incorporate into your field of work, and then a discussion of any lingering questions you may have. So pretty straightforward, but again, just to kind of have us dive deeper into affirmative action. So any questions about the paper assignment?
No, I think it's pretty clear.
No, okay, good.
Thank you.
And then I was gonna take time, and these were the main headings in our lecture notes. All of these kind of bullet points is a heading. And so it's fascinating. So, and I'll just kind of give you a brief summary, but is there diversity in the academic world or in academia? I think that within higher education, there's still a major disconnect with who is actually present in the US compared to who is actually enrolled in US institutions. So our universities and colleges do not reflect, for one, the communities that they're in for the most part, and they don't reflect the current overall demographics of the US. So I would have to say, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. I think the tuition costs obviously is one, as well as just the culture of education. But I would say that the population of students definitely needs to kind of catch up to the diversity that actually exists. And with regards to faculty, it's even worse. You'll read, and if you're familiar with this, that minority faculty are very hard to come by and often have had a more difficult time getting into tenured positions, which obviously is a clear problem. So I think that when we talk about, like in Module 1, where we talk about lessons and workshops, webinars, training for corporations, we've got to be doing the same for universities. And I would think that universities tend to be a bit more liberal in nature, but unfortunately, I still think there is quite a bit of discrimination when it comes to the hiring specifically of faculty. I know that at ASU, we try really hard to have the demographics of the community, and I think they've done a really good job at that. But I often will talk to students, and they'll say that they'll go 3-4 years without having any faculty that they can identify with from a ethnicity standpoint. So that's got to be difficult. One of the, at least at ASU, our main kind of focus and phrase is we do not measure our success on who we exclude, but only on how we include, and their success. And I think that we're kind of laughed at by some institutions. But I think it's actually where we should be today. If you look at acceptance rates, I was just at UCLA on Thursday and Friday, and they received 100,000 applications for their freshman class, and they take about 3,000 students. So you got to imagine, what do those 3,000 students really represent the community of that area, or even the representation of who lives in the US. Mm-hmm. What else here? Kind of in the middle, diversity, if left unmanaged, will interfere with departmental functioning. And I think what that's highlighting is that you do have to manage it with regards to making the most of it and capitalizing on the strengths of the people who you have on your team. Do male and female students learn differently? You'll read that they do, and that's something to take into consideration. There was a study done in 2004 of actually 2 EDD professors who were looking at are males or females more successful in an online setting, and they actually found that males study better in an online setting. Now keep in mind, I think the end count of their sample size was like 79 students. But it was highlighting that men, when they think of a computer, they think that the things you can do on a computer, that you can gain power from it, and that you often do get power from it, where women, at least in this study, highlighted that they look at a computer as a way to socialize and connect with people. And so they also found that in an online course setting, that the flow of the course, which is usually quite organized, if it's a good course, that men identified with that stronger, so maybe more from an analytical standpoint, whereas women did better like in the discussion board posts. So it's really fascinating because there haven't been too many studies. I think there's only a handful that look at that. And so I think then the question is, well, how do you make sure that women are just as successful in an online course? I don't know if our notes cover that, but it was definitely a question that left me afterwards. I think also a lot of the learning that happens in an online course is up to the instructor and how he or she is engaging students and personally reaching out to them, as well as encouraging them. And then lastly, here at the last bullet point, how have the teaching materials over the last 2 decades changed from what they were 3 to 4 decades ago? I would say drastically. I think more and more within trainings and teaching materials that demographics, the variety of demographics are more represented. I think there's a lot more attention to making sure that we're not just teaching to a homogeneous population, but making sure that it's representative of a larger population. Also, you'll see even in the imagery within teaching materials, there's more, there's equal male, females, as well as non-white skinned individuals represented, which I think is really important, that people are able to identify themselves in any type of training or workshop. So that's a real crash course summary of lots and lots of lecture notes, but that will kind of give you an introduction to it. I found them quite fascinating. And then just a summary here, and I'll end here, see if you have any questions. Obviously, diversity is found in all aspects of the world. The workforce and education is full of diverse people, which means that, yeah, that they need to be, that's why we need inclusive kind of training in everything that we're doing. In order to become true, one must know how to accept differences, which I think some people are afraid of the word tolerance, but I think in the workplace, tolerance is needed. And being able to, you don't have to agree with everything that someone is saying, but you definitely have to respect them. One hindering aspect that is encountered by learners and educators, is the self-fulfilling prophecy. Students will definitely raise the expectation that a teacher will give them and will perform with the image they have created in their mind. With personal computers, the popularity of the internet, etc., more materials are available electronically and digitally, which then makes the material more accessible. And that's what I personally love about online education, is that you are educating individuals who may never go back to school, or just who wouldn't be able to fit it in, but because of the internet and programs like Zoom, we're able to connect in the evening. And then educators now use anti-bias guidelines to detect unsound practices and existing and future teaching curricula, which I think is just solid, which I know didn't exist even when I was in school. It was a quite biased, I think, curricula. So there is your crash course. Did you hear anything new or anything that you agree, disagree with?
No, I find with, I worked for a major corporation for 15 years, and this was back when affirmative action was really emphasized, because it was a high-profile company.
Okay.
And I read where affirmative action, you're trying to create diversity, but whether a company has a program or not, you still have a diverse workforce.
Sure.
So I'm a Caucasian male, and I kind of got when it was at a peak at that time, which was a number of years ago, it worked against me because of my gender and my race.
Got it.
So, so what I would say with diversity is that I do think schools and businesses should reflect the communities in which they exist.
Yeah.
And I also believe that one of the keys of trying to minimize issues that we have in the area of people that are different, because we're all different, I go back to a one word, and it's just respect.
Yeah, completely.
Just show respect for people that are different than yourself. It just, to me, in every area of life, it just goes, even, in any leadership or management position, respect the people that you report to, you work with, and report to you.
Yeah.
And everybody. I just think it's the way to go.
Yeah.
Well, and I found that personally. I mean, I got a lot of mileage behind me, not as much ahead, but it solves a lot of problems. Good communication and respect.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And
I know oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to mention, I think on social media, there's been I forget the exact verbiage, but it's kind of, or maybe it's even on LinkedIn. Are you on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Yeah. People have posted like, you treat your janitorial staff like you do the CEO. And obviously, yeah, you should, but I just think it's interesting how it's popping back up, kind of that whole idea of regardless of who you are, you treat them the same. And I think that's such a key principle.
Yeah, I used to run a bunch of restaurants in my past. So I'll be real quick.
Wow.
And when I would take over a new market, or I would be assigned to a new market, honestly, I might have 12 restaurants, and I would, on my first visits to the locations, I would go in, I'd greet a few customers, talk to the people up front, but then I would go to the back of the restaurant, and I would start with the dishwasher. And I would take a few minutes to talk to the dishwasher, tell them how important his or her job was. Nobody wants to eat off a dirty fork or dirty plate or anything.
Yeah.
And I found that by doing those types of things, I really caught everyone's attention.
It's good.
In a good way. You know?
Absolutely.
And I again, it goes back to, we have different levels of responsibility and authority and decision making, and we're held accountable for different things. But, to your point of the custodians or whatever, that's a critical job.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and if you get people that are working in those areas where they're talking to students and treating them and helping out whenever they can and being and have good interpersonal skills, it just goes a long way.
Yep. And I just think, from the boss or the CEO to someone in a lower position, that communication is powerful, but then colleagues seeing that communication, I think, is really where it's powerful. And having a leader that doesn't change when someone new walks in the room or treats them differently, I think is really key. So
you folks have a new football coach, don't you?
We do. Yeah. Yep.
And he's right in line with all this.
Oh, I know he is. Yeah. It's funny you say that.
Great interpersonal skills, well-known individual, but he really, everything I've read, everything I've heard, everything that people say, he really tries to teach character. And, so I'm going to be following your team. I'm a big college football fan, and he happens to be one of my favorites.
Oh, that's good. I don't know too much about him, so I'll have to look into him. I knew it happened really quickly after firing Coach Graham. But it's funny because on my way from LA to Phoenix on Friday, I sat next to, forgetting his name, he's an ASU coach on the football team. I forget what he's coaching, but played for the NFL, very well known. As people came down the aisle, they knew who he was and shook his hand. And I sat literally right next to he and his wife. And I kind of really wrestled with not treating them differently, and not kind of like oohing and awing over them. So I chose not to even introduce myself.
So this was the head coach?
No, this is like the second in charge.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I just thought, you know what? Why should he be treated any differently? He's just a good athlete.
That's all right.
Yeah.
You could have put your hand out there and said, hey, let me introduce myself.
Yeah. So, but he was exhausted. So he must have been like on a recruiting trip because he fell right to sleep. So anyway, well, thanks for joining me. Did you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, nice to connect with you. Feel free to join in, and I hope you have a good week.
I hope you feel better.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.